Hey everybody, it's Montel here, and thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. And I am so excited about having an opportunity to talk to the guests that I have on today. But before I do, I want to kind of back up a little bit. I know I've talked about it quite a bit on Free Thinking whenever anybody's asked me about my journey with MS, but I thought maybe let me just do it again just to summarize because I think it'll help our guests and it'll also help you get an understanding for what's going on with me. I got to tell you, my most asked question, I did a live VA event, Veterans Day event this last week for a huge corporation that I'm told had a couple thousand people watching live. And, I did a presentation on the VA and our veterans and our plight of our veterans and what's going on with them right now. And after I answered maybe 3 questions about how I feel about military service, I had a slew of questions that came in asking me, Montel, how are you doing with your MS? Montel, what do you do for your MS? Montel, what kind of diet are you on for your MS? I get that question everywhere I go. And I am telling you, it's no burden. I appreciate you asking. And first off, I will tell you that I have been doing well. Secondly, I will say that it's not a burden, and I appreciate you asking me questions because I think the more and more we share what we learn for ourselves, the more and more we share with others is really why we learned it to begin with. It's not just for us individually. And so let me just back up for a second and take you on a little journey with me. I was first diagnosed, or I should have been first diagnosed with MS back in 1980, 40 years ago. And it's really crazy that my official diagnosis didn't come for 20 years later. And that was after having seen, I'm telling you, probably 20 different doctors and being prodded and poked and pinned and MRI'd and CAT scanned over a 20-year period of time while I was in the military. I just kept being misdiagnosed. And why? Because if you take a look at some of the information and data that was available back in 1980, I did not fit the, taught profile of an MS patient. As a matter of fact, the majority of papers that were written and documents written back in 1980 when I suffered my first episode or bout that was misdiagnosed, most of the medical journals and and information that was fed to doctors across the country was that MS was a disease of Caucasian women of Northern European descent. And no one decided to look even one step further in the fact that I am biracial. My mother happens to be, I'm quarter racial. My mother happens to be biracial. Her mother was a woman from Scotland who now we know later on in life developed some sort of neurological disorder that nobody ever talked about. Nobody knew what it was. But, I don't know, was it MS or not? I don't know. But I do know that I probably had the genetic predisposition to this illness throughout my entire life. At the Naval Academy, and I had been at the Naval Academy for 4 years in 1980, getting ready to graduate with my class in 1980, and was given what we routinely do and what the military was routinely doing back then, my pre-commissioning immunizations, inoculations. And back then, they were given to people in the military using a gun. And it was this gun that they would set a load for, and every guy would step up. I know you've seen them in old-fashioned movies. The person would step up in a line, and they shoot you in the arm, and that's your inoculation. Move on, next guy. Well, it wasn't until after they shot 100 of us, and I unfortunately happened to be in that first group of 100, that someone realized that the gun had been set almost 3.5 to 4 times higher than it was supposed to be for a particular immunization. It happened to be diphtheria typhoid, and back then they gave diphtheria typhoid together. And it immediately elicited a extremely virulent immune response in me. I literally almost went blind in my left eye, was suffering some neurological symptoms that no one could explain. I was rushed to to Bethesda at the time because I was in the Navy. Rushed to Bethesda. First, they took me through the Naval Academy Hospital. They couldn't understand what was going on. Then I went to Bethesda. They didn't understand what was going on. Then they moved me over to Walter Reed. They didn't understand what was going on. Then I was sent up to Johns Hopkins in Maryland. They didn't know what was going on. I was then sent to Wells Eye Clinic in Philadelphia. They didn't know what was going on. Nobody could figure out what's going on with this dude. Why? because at the time, I'm 4 years, I had been 6 years in the military at this point in time. And, I'm not, you know, patting myself on the back, but I was an extremely athletic person involved in a lot of weightlifting and involved in a lot of bodybuilding. And so I was walking around, with weighing 185 pounds with a 20-inch waist. I'm sorry, with a 28-inch waist. And I was ripped to shreds. I had just, passed all of my physical fitness tests at the Naval Academy, with almost a perfect score. I was probably 2 points below a perfect score. And because of that, I'd walk in a doctor's office and his first thought was, some of these symptoms are weird because it seems like you could have MS, but no, you can't. You're a black guy. Nah, I can't be MS because you're in too good a shape. Nah, I can't be MS. You're too young. And I got that over and over and over again for 20 years. And meanwhile, during that 20-year period of time, I literally was suffering aperiodically. I can't put a finger on the periodicity. It could have been every 7 or 8 months. It could have been every 5 or 6 months. It could have been once a year because I don't really know because I wasn't getting the information from the doctors when I go see them. Nothing's wrong with you. You're lifting too much weight. Da, da, da. But I was literally experiencing some, neurological anomalies that no one could explain. But doctors attempted to explain it, and I should back up and say again, I was a member of the powerlifting team at the Naval Academy and fancy myself a powerlifter for, I don't know, almost 30 years. There was one point in time when, I don't say it to brag, but, I was deadlifting, right around, I could deadlift over 600 pounds out of a rack, but I was deadlifting off the floor, clearing for contest worthy clearances, 585. I was bench pressing about, 360. I was squatting on my back 585 pounds for good clean squats and then squatting out of a rack for 620 pounds. So I was, which I now pay for at the age of 64 because I'm about a 3/4 of an inch shorter than I was back then from putting all that stupid weight on my back. But bottom line is I kept being misdiagnosed because doctors, and I'm not saying it as an aspersion, but doctors literally couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't get out of the textbooks that were in front of them. They wouldn't believe that there was something else out there that they didn't understand, so they just said, no, it can't be. And then in in year 2000, after I started my talk show back in 91, I know a lot of you know this because I announced it on my show, 1999, really, I went through an episode or with how MS is characterized at a bout that literally turned my world upside down. That bout started with extreme neuropathic pain in my lower extremities, my side, my face, I had left side weakness. Some of my optic neuritis came back and with a vengeance, and I had nystagmus and lots of other weird things going on. I went to see a doctor, got a preliminary diagnosis, and then this doctor literally did it in a way that just threw me, kind of walked in and said, I think you have MS. You need to go get that looked at again, see if somebody else confirms what I'm thinking, but I think that's what you have. And then just walked out. So I went to Harvard, visited what I thought was the, number one place in the country, and finally got diagnosed with MS after they reviewed years worth of MRIs and, did an in-office, neurological exam. And I was diagnosed with MS and remitting relapsing, and have been on a regimen and on a journey since 1980 when I got it confirmed to see if I could do as much as I could do to help mitigate the symptoms of my illness and thrive with the illness, not just survive with the illness, but thrive with the illness. And, I think I've done a fairly decent job, but, we can always do a better job. And that's why I'm so excited to have the guest on with me today. And our guest today is a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. She's an IMF trained physician, an educator, a researcher, and she's an MS patient herself. She was dependent on a tilt-recline wheelchair for 4 years due to her multiple sclerosis until she reclaimed her health by using diet and lifestyle program. She now actually, bikes to work every day. She has her own, healthy training program. It's the Dr. Wahls Protocol, and is an autoimmune protocol that has transformed the lives of thousands of people across the globe, not just here in the United States, and has changed the direction of dietary and health behavioral research for neurological and autoimmune conditions, including MS. Dr. Wahls, I can't say thank you enough for being a part of Free Thinking today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. You started off with a bachelor's degree in fine arts. What made you decide to change that over and go into medicine?
Originally I was going to switch over and go into veterinary medicine because I decided that I love science. I love rural America. I love my farm. And along the way, I decided that I would get into human medicine instead. And ironically, when I started and I met all of my colleagues, I thought they were much more pretentious than I am. And I thought I'd made a terrible mistake, that I was more of a veterinarian temperament, but I wasn't going to do basic science again. I said, okay, just stay the course. It'll all work out in the end. And of course, I'm profoundly grateful that I did end up in human medicine after all.
Now, you grew up on a farm, did you not?
Absolutely. Grew up on a farm. We had horses, pigs, cows. It was a wonderful place.
I only ask that question because, sometimes I try to figure out in my brain. I'm one of the only people in my family history that we know of that's had a neurological disorder. But I was born in a very small area of Baltimore, a ghetto area of Baltimore that was called Cherry Hill. And my parents literally lived a block and a half away from the city dump. And the city dump in Baltimore was the first hazardous waste cleanup site when we did that back in the late 70s, early 80s, because Bethlehem Steel was there. And Bethlehem Steel was dumping a lot of toxic waste into this dump. And I remember as a child, I used to, we had older kids in the neighborhood, used to make the little kids run through the edges of the trash to see if we could chase rats out that they could, either hit them with a rock or shoot them with a BB gun. And I remember, just now, I'm flashing back to running along that edge of trash. And I wonder, could that have had anything to do with
Oh,
my later development of a neurological disease?
absolutely, Montel. So the trash, the toxins, probably heavy metals, solvents, uh, probably increased the inflammation and then further activated those inflammatory genes. The other thing I wanted to mention is we are so parallel. My symptoms began also in 1980.
Oh,
It
wow.
took me 20 years of episodic face pain, horrific neuropathic pain.
Yes, you
Uh,
had trigeminal neuralgia?
well, I had trigeminal neuralgia.
I see.
It would become more frequent, more severe, more devastating for 27 years.
Wow.
7 years into that, I developed optic neuritis
Mm.
with very dim vision in my left eye when I worked out because I was an athlete like you. And I discovered I couldn't race in hot weather because I became blind in my left eye. And fortunately, my physicians didn't diagnose me because if they had, I probably would not have had kids. Because a few years later, I had my son and then my daughter. And then, in 2000, I developed leg weakness and then was diagnosed with MS at that time. But it was 20 years of horrific pain episodically, like you, before I got that diagnosis.
For me doing that, my trigeminal neuralgia didn't start until after 20 years. But before that, I had extreme pain like in, my side, not in my back, in my side, and in my feet, the bottom of my feet. It would come and go for 20 years. I would have a flash of it for like a day and a half and it would go away. Then another flash of it for a day and a half and it would go away. In my side, then, I had blurriness of vision in my left eye, but I wasn't doing a lot of aerobics back then. It wasn't until I started doing aerobics that I started to realize that's just like yourself. As my body temperature went up, my left eye, I lost vision. And
Correct.
then I started having, bouts of nystagmus in my right eye, which was really strange. And I have, I've been diagnosed with this thing called after pupillary defect and, a neuropathy. And so, I will tell you that since 2000, it was really very interesting. My bout that sent me to the doctors was just extreme pain that would not go away. I mean, I'm telling you, the worst pain I'd ever felt in my life, in my feet, my calf, my lower calves, my ankles. And I went to see a doctor at Harvard, and they said, yes, you have MS. I went on a medication, and that pain stayed the same to the point that I was probably taking every opioid that you can figure. And I was taking some of the opioids that really I should not have been taking. And because I was a celebrity, I had the opportunity to doctor shop, so I was getting extra opioids. And I was blessed that I had a doctor, it was Dr. Olick, who used to be the head of the MS Center in Harvard, went on to, I think, USC. Um, Dr. Olick was who diagnosed me. Dr. Olick also said, I'm done with you. I'm not writing any more opioid prescriptions for you. Dude, if I keep doing this, you're going to kill yourself because you are clearly opioid addicted, and I'm not going to do this for you. And I'll tell you, this is very interesting, Dr. Wall. Back in 2001, Dr. Olick said to me, I gave up the name, but he said, I have read some information about this marijuana stuff that seems to be a particular type of it that seems to help people with your kind of pain. I'm not going to tell you I recommended this to you because I'm not. I'm not going to tell you to go do it. I'm just going to tell you you're a smart guy, do the research yourself, and you may get some help out of that. I don't know. And then literally he transferred hospitals and I lost touch with him. But back in 2001, I got off of every opioid that I was on and literally shifted over to a very high level CBD laden cannabis that literally helped me. This is long before people were talking CBD, long before people even knew what cannabis was, long before we're in the position where we're in today, when during one of the weirdest elections that we've ever had, four of the most conservative states in the country had passed medical marijuana laws. I'm just throwing that out there. But that, I think, along with, I also say, I changed my diet immediately in 2001. I changed the way I exercised in 2001. I was walking around back then, trying to be a bodybuilder. I weighed about 210 pounds. I was blown up, as big as a house. I had big guns and big chest. And I literally dropped 20 pounds in a 4-month period of time. Got myself down to 190, then 180. Changed my diet over to a more plant-based diet. And I even for a period of time went vegan. Then I went vegetarian. Then I think I kind of went like, I think pescatarian or, a Mediterranean style diet, which was really more of a paleo kind of a diet. And I think that that's what really, really, really helped me through my journey. No question. And then later on, I started a protocol with the PONS device that we just talked about a little bit before we started, which is a device. It's called a portable neuromodulation device that I've been using now for 10 years, and it turned my life around. Flip the coin, flip the spread. So again, looking back at your life, when you were finally diagnosed, I like to share with people the fact that I'm telling you, it blew me away. I was devastated, most depressed I've ever been in my life. But when I started on a journey of trying to mitigate my inflammation and started feeling better, that lifted me out of that depression. What was your diagnosis like for you when you finally got the truth?
So my kids were very young. My son's 8, my daughter's 5. I do what many physicians do. I'm reading everything that I can. I see that it's a progressive disease. And so I'm a professor. I believe in the best technology. So I find the best center, see the best people, take the newest drugs, and I go downhill anyway. Then I take more aggressive drugs. I go downhill again. Then I'm put on Tysabri. I go downhill again. And this in 3 years, I'm in a tilt-recline wheelchair. And that's when I realized I've got to do everything that I possibly can. So I go back to reading the science myself. And I start looking at the basic science, the animal model studies. And I decide that mitochondria are key. And I start working on a supplement cocktail. And that slows my decline. I'm very grateful. I'm introduced to the work of Lauren Corday. I've been on a paleo diet for years. I'm still declining. And I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take their course. I have more supplements. And then I had this really big aha, Montel. Like, what if I redesign my paleo diet based on everything I've learned from reading the basic science and functional medicine, everything I'm taking supplement form? What if I get it from the food? And so that's more research. In the summer of '07, I'm so weak I cannot sit up anymore. I'm in a zero gravity chair. My face pain is much more horrific. I'm beginning to have brain fog. My boss has assigned me to a new job that I know I can't possibly do. I'll have to start that in January. So that's very difficult. But this is when I've decided to, redesign my paleo diet in this very specific way, and I get that research done. I do that in December. And at December 26th, I start this very, very precise, rigid way of doing my paleo diet. And then in January, I start my new assignment, mid-January. The first week, I'm just observing from my wheelchair. I should be able to do that. The next week, I have to get out of my wheelchair, examine these guys and ladies, sit back down, take the notes. And at the end of the week, I'm talking to my wife like, that wasn't too bad. And then the next week, I can do that. And I realize my fatigue is much less. My brain fog is much less. And my pain is definitely less. And in 3 months, my physical therapist I've been, seeing every week is like, Terry, you're getting stronger. He advances my exercises. And I'm able to sit up at the table with my family for supper. That's a really big deal. That's a big deal. And then I'm able to start walking with walking sticks in the hospital. And people are stunned. They haven't seen me walking around the hospital in 4 years. And then, I'm beginning to walk around the neighborhood with my walking sticks. And then I have this idea. I asked Jackie, like, do you think I could ride my bike again? And she goes, well, maybe in the fall, things are going well. Maybe, this fall. And a couple weeks later, it's Mother's Day. I get it in my head that I want to try riding my bike. We have this emergency family meeting. And Jack says, okay, she'll have my son jog on the left, my daughter jog on the right, she'll follow on the bike. And my kids are teenagers now. And Jack is watching the traffic, gives all clear, and I push off. And I bike around the block. My son's crying, my daughter's crying, Jackie's crying, I'm crying. As you can see, I still cry talking about this because that was such a miraculous moment. That was the first time, because Montel, I had accepted what my physicians had told me, all those physicians. Progressive MS, because I was in the secondary progressive phase, functions once lost are gone forever. You'll never be getting stronger. So even though I was doing better, I didn't know what any of it meant. But when I biked that first time, I understood that the conventional understanding of MS was incomplete and how much recovery might be possible. That's when it's like, how back to normal might I be able to get? And that fall, I kept biking, I kept doing my workout, I kept doing physical therapy. And that fall, we did the courage ride together, my family and I. And I biked 18.5 miles with my family.
Yes.
Once again, my son's crying, my daughter's crying, my wife's crying, and I'm crying because it felt miraculous. And it still feels miraculous as I relive that moment. So that changed how I thought about disease and health. It changed the way I practiced medicine. And it would change the focus of my research.
I got to tell you, I got to take a little break. I got to pay some bills. That is phenomenal. I don't know how anybody could not be motivated to want to find out more. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do, any of us can do who are on a journey to improve any aspect of our lives. To not take the time and share it with others and explain it to others is almost criminal. There's no reason for us to receive a blessing if we can't share blessings with other people. So let me do this. I'm going to take a little break, and when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about this protocol. About were you aware that it was your protocol that was making the changes, or were you just living the good life thinking, oh, God, I must be getting better? I want to talk a lot more about that. And I also want to continue. I think your story did something amazing, and that is give a lot of people a lot of hope, a lot of hope. I always try to tell every person that I meet that has MS, you alone own the definition of who you are. Do not let someone else define you. If for every doctor, I'm not saying this with any aspersion, but if all doctors were gods, none of us would be sick. So that means that, they're not the all-knowing. So the doctor stands before you with a crystal ball and says, you're going to be XYZ. Really? I mean, how they know that over you, I don't know. But let's talk a little bit. I got to take a break, pay some bills. You have been tuned in to Free Thinking with Montel today. My guest is Dr. Terry Wahls. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss the rest of this interview. I'm going to take a little break. We'll be back right after this. Hey guys, Montel here. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. And today I have a guest who's a professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. She's an educator. She's a researcher. She's an MS patient herself. One who, for a period of time, ended up in a tilt-recline wheelchair for 4 years due to her multiple sclerosis until she reclaimed her health by using a diet and a lifestyle program that she designed specifically to restore her cellular health. And now she pedals her bike to work almost every day, and she's training every day, and she's sharing her Wahls Protocol, which is an autoimmune protocol that has transformed thousands of lives across the planet. And again, I am so happy to and proud to say I have Dr. Wahls here with us today. Thank you so much, Dr. Wahls.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Before we went to break, you were talking about, your journey and how you started to feel better and things were changing. Did you, give credit to your diet and this regimen that you were on that was making a difference?
Yeah, actually, and so did my neurologist. As I recovered, I went back to see my neurologist, told him I wanted to go off my disease-modifying drugs. He agreed. We tapered the dose, and I went off. I continued to do really very well. But if I, get exposed to, in my case, gluten, dairy, or eggs, my trigeminal neuralgia comes turning it on in 6 to 24 hours back to really incapacitating levels of pain. And so as long as I maintain my diet, my lifestyle, I'm doing great. Pain-free, no problems with fatigue, no problems with mental clarity, getting steadily stronger. And this is what I see in my clinics as well. As long as people maintain the protocol, they're doing great. If they back off, symptoms return.
Well, now, you explain that, it's the hunter-gatherer diet that you use, and that's, part of what's incorporated in your Wahls Protocol. Can you explain that just a little bit? I don't want to give away a book, because I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
What's the book? A copy of the book? Do you have a copy? Now hold it up real quick so people can see. You got it in front of you?
Yeah.
I want people to be just like what I'm going to do today. I'm going up on Amazon and I'm going to find me a copy of that book and have it delivered to my house by this Thursday. I'm telling you, that is a guarantee out my mouth. I ain't lying. I'm buying it today. Share a little bit with what you have in there. What is this hunter-gatherer diet?
Well, and I want to be clear, humans migrated out of Africa all across the globe into many different terrains, grasslands, forests, tundra, deserts. So there are many different versions of the hunter-gatherer diet. We have protein, meat, fish, poultry. We have lots of vegetables, plants, greens, cabbage, onion, mushroom family, things that are deeply colored, carrots, beets, berries. What we don't have is sugar. What we don't have is highly processed flour-based grain products. Those are new foods and are very inflammatory. And so it's a structured way of eating to make sure you have what your cells need to thrive and repair. And Montel, I'll also acknowledge that I recognize there are people who are vegetarian or vegan for their deeply held spiritual beliefs. So in fact, in my book, I do provide guidance for those who are vegetarian and vegans, and I provide guidance for those who are ketogenic eaters because there are some reasons to be in ketosis as well. But what's really important is I describe what are the key nutrients that we know brain cells need and our cells need to do the function of being a brain, doing the cellular work. And if you don't eat that stuff, your cells won't function properly and you will deteriorate and your health will deteriorate.
Wow. And of course, that's in the book, right? That's probably the majority of explanations that you do is in the book is in diet. So
Yes.
I'm sure that's the one you're getting most questions about, right?
Correct. And in addition to the diet, we talk about which targeted supplements that we use, and we talk about ways to improve detox, to improve hormonal balance, and we talk a lot about exercise and talk about rehabilitation because you want to restore functions that were lost, whether it's balance, whether it's strength, hand coordination, because we want to improve your functional capacity.
Gotcha. Now, should people who are considered healthy, follow your protocol? Healthy people can do it also, correct? If they claim to be
Well,
healthy.
so a lot of folks realize that they're fatigued, so they use a lot of energy drinks. They use a lot of coffee, caffeine to get through the day, and thinking like, well, I'm 30 now. I should be as energetic. I'm 40. I should be as energetic. In reality, you should have great energy. You should have fabulous energy. And what many people discover is that by implementing the Wahls Protocol, their energy soars, their mental clarity soars, their mood greatly improves. And what they thought had been normal aging was in fact hidden inflammation. And we have a lot of folks, we know with the COVID epidemic going on, if you have hidden inflammation or if you have insulin resistance, you're much more likely to have a more severe case of COVID. And so this is the time you want to improve your nutrition. This is the time you want to improve your blood sugar control. And the kind of dietary plan that we use improved that inflammation and that blood sugar control in the thousands of patients we took care of in the VA system.
Well, that's one thing I'm not even sure all the MS listeners out there. One thing that I thought was the most important thing that was told to me when I first got diagnosed, and even what I read about is that, again, with MS, inflammation is our nemesis. That is the biggest issue that's going on inside of us. And the more we can reduce our inflammation, if we do so by diet and exercise, that's the best way to do it, correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we know that lifestyle is key. The diet quality and all of the self-care routines that we talk about and teach in my programs, in my book, are key to getting that hidden inflammation under control.
What are some of the common anti-inflammatory foods that are out there that would be helpful for people to, or how about give me some inflammatory foods and then
Well,
anti-inflammatory foods?
so the inflammatory foods, sugar, of course, all of those sweetened beverages that we drink, very inflammatory. Things with a high glycemic index. So breads, white potatoes, a lot of our pastas made out of grains, that'll dump a lot of sugar into your bloodstream, very inflammatory. The anti-inflammatory foods, greens. The green smoothies. I believe you're very fond of Montel. I'm also very fond of those green smoothies. Cooked greens, very anti-inflammatory. Berries, very anti-inflammatory. Beets, carrots, anti-inflammatory. Clean proteins. Again, that's a different strategy if you're vegetarian or vegan, but you want to be sure that you have sufficient protein to maintain and repair all of your cells. And so meat, fish, poultry. Unfortunately, a bunch of the animal protein that is produced in these mega factory farms that are not quite as healthy. So if you're able to financially get grass-fed, grass-finished, that's most ideal. But we clearly need enough protein in our diet so we can make the cellular structures, make the antibodies that we'll need, and the immune cells we need to maintain and repair our cells. Because we have wear and tear in our cells as we go through everyday life and we have normal aging, and our immune cells have to come in and do the repair work. And as part of that repair work, it requires a bunch of protein.
And that's what also is affecting our mitochondria, correct? Let's talk a little bit about mitochondria and the role it plays.
Yeah, so the mitochondria are really the power pack of the cells. And interestingly enough, they're ancient bacteria that were engulfed by bigger bacteria about 1.5 billion years ago. And they have coexisted in all of our cells. They generate the ATP that our cells use to drive the chemistry of life. And it's vital that those mitochondria do that process very efficiently so the cell can do the job assigned to it. If this mitochondria is struggling, then the cell can't do that job assigned to it, and we're going to suffer from more inflammation, and we're going to suffer from more metabolic problems, particularly high blood sugar and high insulin levels. So if your mitochondria aren't doing well, we're going to have a lot more of that hidden inflammation, and we're going to have more trouble with blood sugar control. Make us more ill if you have an autoimmune problem, make you more ill if you have a mental health problem. And we now know it will make you more likely to have a more severe case of the influenza virus or the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I recently got a summons to appear on a jury, and I was like, "Oh, come on, man! I'm not going out here right now, sitting in anybody's courtroom. I don't care what kind of mask I got on, because the courtrooms don't have windows, most of them, you know. And additionally, I don't feel like sitting that close to anybody else judging the case. So I literally sent in a request to be excused because of the fact that I believe that I am at higher risk just by virtue of the fact that I have MS,
Correct.
risk for a more severe version of COVID if I get it, correct?
So certainly people with an autoimmune disease, we're worried about that. You and I are over the age of 60, so we're at higher risk because of that. If your vitamin D is low, you're at higher risk because of that. Now, I know in some states, the judicial system is moving to virtual. And so what will that mean for juries and for court testimony? I don't know. I predict that sometime over the next 6 months, more and more legal proceedings will be moving to some sort of virtual environment for the reasons of how we keep government work going as this pandemic becomes more troublesome. So I don't know how this is all going to play itself out, but these are tough times at the hospital here. You know, the hospitalization rates are dramatically increasing day after day.
I don't want to put you on the spot with and ask you the crystal ball, but just let's talk a little bit about this COVID thing at the same time we're talking about MS, because I want that people with MS. We have so many people in this country who, a good 70 million of them believe that we're going down the wrong path with comes to COVID, which is ignorant to me.
What I want everyone to think about is what is under your control that will make you healthier and more resistant so you can have a more mild case. So your vitamin D level, you could get a tan, you could take vitamin D supplements. your blood sugar levels. You could clean up your diet, get rid of the high glycemic index food, eat more fermented vegetables. There's a very interesting study that looked at fermented vegetable intake and the rate of hospitalization for COVID and the death rate by society. And they saw that those societies that had a lot of fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, and kimchi had a significantly lower rate of hospitalization and lower death rates. So eat more sauerkraut, eat more kimchi. Very easy. Eat more vegetables and cut out the high glycemic index foods, the sweetened beverages, the breads, pastas, potatoes, and have more vegetables, yams, and protein, however you and your family protein. So those are very simple measures. Make sure you're sleeping well at night. And then you can lower your exposure, that is the virus dose you're going to encounter by being socially distanced, washing your hands. If you wear a mask, you will have a somewhat smaller dose if there are other people shedding virus. If they're also wearing a mask, they will shed less virus as well. So these are all strategies under our control that can be very helpful in making it more likely that you'll have either a smaller dose of virus or a more balanced immune system, better blood sugar, less hidden inflammation. And I wish, as we're making all these public service announcements, that we would say all of those things.
Right. And we don't. I think it's just gotten so politicized. And
Well,
so
it's up to you, people like you and me, to tell people there's so much under your control to make your chronic health problems less severe, whether it's an autoimmune issue, a mental health issue, and to make you in a better place at the point that you're exposed to the virus or the influenza virus, because we will likely all be exposed to both of those viruses sometime in the coming year.
And we now know, just like the influenza virus, it's been around for a long time. This COVID virus has probably been around for a long time. We just happen to pick it up in humans. And now this is, I think people are trying to look forward and say, well, this is going to be all over here come March if they get a vaccine together. It's never going to be all over, right?
It's never going to be all over. It'll continue to mutate. So we'll get a vaccine. It'll be less of a problem, but it's not going to become a zero problem. And so you'll still want to be as healthy as you can be. You still want to get rid of your hidden inflammation. You still want to improve your blood sugars. You still want to improve your mood. And I bet people want to live, a long, full, healthy life with their brain and body working well into their 60s, 80s, 90s, 100 and beyond.
Absolutely. Hold your book up one more time for me, please. I want to make sure everybody sees it and knows that they can go
Okay.
up. Sorry.
Hey, quite all right.
There now.
I'm going to give you both books.
There we go. It's the Wahls Protocol and the Wahls Protocol Cooking for Life. So you need to go up on Amazon today, order both these books. I'm telling you, if in fact the thousands of people who have claimed to have made changes in their lives are telling the truth, why not take control of those things that you can take control of? Dr. Wahls, thank you so much. Honestly, anything else you want to add? Hey, let's talk about, I got something for you because you really have just an unbelievable demeanor, attitude, everything about you, I think is unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit about what you think about, and I've been working with several doctors around the country on this issue, about the fact that we're not paying attention to what is going to be our next pandemic, and that's going to be a pandemic of poor mental health because of this pandemic.
Well, absolutely. And I think we are paying nearly enough attention to empowering people to take advantage of what is under their control, to address diet quality, to improve sleep, to learn how to cook, to add fermented vegetables. If we had spent as much time talking about learning how to cook, having some sauerkraut, meditating, turning off your computer so you go to sleep at night, we'd be improving our health overall. We'd be improving our mental health. And the other comment that I want to tell your audience is, in addition to teaching the public, writing books, making online courses to teach people how I do this, I conduct the research. And we've done 4 studies, all of which have had very exciting results. We're writing up the results of our most recent study. We'll be sending that off for publication. I am now doing a study comparing basically the Wahls Protocol: diet, meditation, exercise, no drugs, in the newly diagnosed MS patient to patients who are doing the best drugs, also in the newly diagnosed MS patients. And we'll be following them for a year, abstracting the medical records, seeing how the disease goes. And we'll be able to answer the question, are people hurting themselves by declining drugs and just doing diet and lifestyle? Or is it just as effective as doing diet and lifestyle? And we're very excited about that. And of course, we're writing grants to do the next iteration of my study, comparing diet, swank diet, Wahls diet, dietary guidelines, and following folks for 2 years and seeing what happens to outcomes and to brain structure as measured by MRIs. So, and 10 years ago, when I was doing these studies, I was roundly criticized by the conventional neurology community. But we did the research. We told the public, and I'm very transparent. I disclose everything to the public. And now, now I have funding from the MS Society, $1 million to do my research. I'm part of the dietary subgroup for the MS Wellness Committee. And the university here at Iowa is proud of it. And they're very proud of the fact that these amazing studies funded by philanthropy, because touched a lot of people who have money, who have resources, who then in turn make sizable contributions. So I can do these very innovative studies to answer the question, what is the role of diet and lifestyle for controlling this serious autoimmune condition?
It's a study that needs to be done now. And this is being done through your Wahls Therapeutic Lifestyle Research Fund.
Correct.
People can go up online and get more information about that?
Yes, if you go to terrywahls.com, we have links to our research where you can donate. We have links there if you want to learn more about our online program. For those who want to come see me as a patient.
Dr. Wahls, you just gave me a pretty good idea. I'm telling you, we ought to do a television show together and do a cooking show, you and I.
That would be lovely. I would love to do that.
I think put it online. I'm telling you, I think it would be a really, really, really good program teaching people how to take control of their lives right now.
Absolutely. I think it's critical. And one of our favorite recipes, we have some favorite recipes for liver. People think liver, they can't imagine eating liver. Our family, it's one of our favorite meals, it is liver. And that's something we have once a week because it is a superfood for your brain, for your eyes, and for your immune health. So I would make liver for you and your crew, and to make some more cooked greens. So it would be an honor. We would love to do that.
I'm gonna talk to some of my people. I'm gonna get my people to talk to your people. Let's figure out how we get this done.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, I think it would be a big hit because people right now, there's so much information out there that does no one any good at all. Information like this can help change lives.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So now, I'm almost out of time. Anything else you want to add?
I love your mission as well. we need to empower people so they know they have much more control over their health destiny than they realize.
Absolutely. I'm gonna, I do a show that's called The Balancing Act, and I'm going to recommend you to be one of our guests, and not only a guest, but maybe get you in studio so you can do a segment with us. It would be really, really, really great.
That would be wonderful. I would love that.
Absolutely, Dr. Wahls. Well, I'm telling you, you've heard it here. You've been listening to Free Thinking with Montel today, and our guest has been Dr. Wahls, Terry Wahls, whose books are out there right now. One is called, hold them up again, Terry. Right there. You said, no, you got the backs. You got the backs to me. There you go. One's called the Wahls Protocol, and the other one's called Wahls Protocol Cooking for Life. Go up on Amazon like I am going to do today and get yourself a copy. And I got to say thank you so much for tuning in to Free Thinking with Montel. Make sure you tune into the next one. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear feedback, so please send us your comments.